We are live. Welcome to the Rome Show. I got a special guest. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Rome?
Good. I appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
Th- Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I was so excited that you reached out to me. Thanks.
Definitely. So if you don't know, I'm a fan of your show, Kevin and Jenna show.
Yeah,
Um, been listening to your show for a while. I
nice.
interviewed Anna and Raven about a
Oh,
year
did you
ago.
really? Awesome.
Yeah. So what inspired you and what got you started?
Yeah, so for radio, yeah, to get into radio, it was I grew up in Massachusetts. I was born in South Boston, and I grew up just south of Boston in a town called Rockland. And at my high school, we had a radio station that I always wanted to get into because all my friends at that time, when I was in high school, played in bands, and they were playing shows around town, and I would go to the shows and hang out, and I always wanted to be part of that world, part of that scene, but I didn't play any instruments, and I wasn't in a band, so I figured if I had a radio show, I could play their songs, have them in the studio. So that was what I always wanted to do. And then while I was in high school, I was playing basketball. I was doing a bunch of other things. I never got into the radio station. There was a waiting list in my high school for the radio station. I never got in. And I was so bummed out about it. But when I started to go to look for colleges and touring campuses, I would ask if they had a radio station. And it was so funny. I would go on this big college tour. I'd be like, "Do you have a radio station here?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, it's over here. You want to see it?" And then so finally I found Curry College in Massachusetts, which is right outside of Boston, and they had a student-run radio station that right when I saw it on the tour, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is You could have your own show, you could sort of grow within the college radio station. So I ended up going to Curry. Did the radio WMLN. It's an FM station in Milton, Massachusetts, on campus at Curry, and I did a radio show all 4 years. And then that's what I did. I had my friends' bands come on. I would play their music, and it was everything I wanted to do. And up to that point, I was like, this is everything I wanted. And then I started doing internships in college in junior and senior year at radio stations in Boston, like commercial radio stations. And I interned at a radio station called WFNX, which isn't around anymore. It's 1017 in Boston. It's actually a country station now. This was back in 2005. Yeah, 2005. And doing that internship, I sort of fell in love with radio. I had always just thought of it as playing music and going to concerts and stuff like that. But then once I started doing the internship, I saw the inner workings of an actual commercial radio station, how much they do for the community and shows, and how all the personalities are connected with the listeners. And I started to really get into that part of it. And that's where my passion started for radio. And then I just started going from there.
Right, long journey. So
Yeah.
starting out in Mass, how did you end up in Connecticut?
Yeah, so I was doing that internship at WFNX, and when I graduated, so I did the internship, then I started working part time on the street team. So radio stations have street teams that go to events and concerts and hand out stickers, and you see them at the tent. You might see them at different events if people are going. You might have seen them out here in Connecticut too with our stations. But so I started doing the street team and started getting paid because the internship I was just doing it for school. So started doing part time, and I would submit my college radio show audio, like demo tapes, to the program director at WFNX, and I'd say, I want to be on the air, and he'd give me feedback, and I just kept grinding and working at it. And eventually they let me do the overnight shift, which doesn't really exist a lot anymore at radio stations nowadays because the computers sort of take care of it. But at the time they had overnight shifts, midnight to 6, where they would put new people on to kind of, hone their craft and work on their skills in the overnight. So I did that for about a year in Boston on WFNX. It was an alternative rock station, and I did midnight to 6, Monday through Thursday. So it was a wacky sort of time because I would sleep from like 7 a.m. to 2. I was just working the overnight shift, and then I would go to my day would start at like 3 o'clock, and I'd go in and do the shift at night, and yeah, so I did that for a while. And then one of my bosses at the time got a job out in Los Angeles at a radio station, so I moved out with him because a bunch of my college friends had moved out to LA to do various things, acting, comedy writing, things like that. So I wanted to move out there anyway, and luckily he moved out to a station and got me a job out there. So I produced a radio show called Jonesy's Jukebox, which was Steve Jones from the rock band the Sex Pistols from England. and he had his own radio show. So I was his producer, kind of guest booker, right hand man, and I did that for like 2 years. And then that station went away, and then I got another job in Richmond, Virginia, doing an afternoon show there. And that was like my 20s. It's like moving around every 2 years, just from radio station to radio station, which actually gave me really good insight into the different communities and how these radio stations worked with the where I lived in LA and where I lived in Richmond. And it was actually a cool experience to see how the different parts of the country, how radio works in these different places. So LA, Richmond, and then I was in Richmond for about 2.5 years. And then in 2012, the company that owned the station in Richmond, Virginia that I was working at also owned the Connecticut radio stations where I'm at now. It's a different company now, but back then it was Cox Media Group. And so I'd always wanted to kind of get back up here, to sort of, be in the Northeast again. So there was an opportunity to come here and work at Star. And that was 2012. 2012. I came here and started doing the afternoon show, and then I've been here ever since. So I've had various roles, over the years, but I've been consistent with the afternoon show. So when I first got here, I was doing the afternoon show solo. And then, as you know, we hired Jenna about 2.5 years ago now. We hired Jenna, and she actually since has left the show. Because she was living in New York. So she had just had a baby, and she was commuting like an hour and 40 minutes each way. So it was a lot for her. And so she actually left the show. We told her the door's always open if she ever wants to come back, get back into radio. So I'm kind of doing the show solo again right now. But yeah, it's been a blast being here in Connecticut. We have great radio stations, great company. Connoisseur Media is the company that owns the stations now. They're based out of Westport. They own stations nationwide, but their headquarters are in Westport. So yeah, that was kind of the rundown of the journey that took me from Massachusetts to the West Coast back to the East Coast.
So you're a legit like radio legend. I mean, going all those places, learning all like different stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying legend. I don't know if I would consider myself legend. I try to stay a little humble about it, but yeah, I mean, I've been doing it since 2005, so it's been 20 years in radio this year, which is crazy to think about. I feel like time just flies when you're doing something fun. So yeah, I've been fortunate to work in a lot of places, meet a lot of people, meet a lot of great radio's like a small world because you work with the record labels too. And I've met a lot of people over the years who I still am friendly with and work with. I met my wife here at the Connecticut radio stations. We have 2 kids now, so like it really has been a huge part of my life, the radio industry. And I feel like, people talk all the time, is radio going away? Is radio struggling? I've been in it for 20 years now. And I feel like that conversation has happened every single year I've been in radio, and it still hasn't gone away. And I feel like it's stronger than ever, actually. So yeah, I mean, I love it. It's been a great career that I've sort of made, all based on me just being into my friends' bands in high school. It's sort of that sort of spring. And that's what I tell people all the time. We have interns here that ask like how to get into radio and how to start a career in it. And I said, if that's what you're passionate about, like just focus on that, just whatever your passion is, follow that. And then if you have to work a job that's not your passion in the meantime, do your passion on your off hours, like never lose the passion. Never be like, oh, I just have to go work a regular job because I can't do whatever it is. Always keep working at it, because you never know when it's gonna turn into something that becomes your career.
Yeah. And from your experience, what's like 2 things that you run your brand by and just like personally to keep yourself going?
Yeah, so I'm always positivity is like one of my huge sort of core beliefs. I feel like keeping things positive is always a good thing. Sounds obvious, but I feel like a lot of people struggle with it. Like just having a positive outlook, positive attitude. I think it's funny. When I was in high school, I was very shy. I was kind of a shy kid. So getting into radio kind of broke me out of my shell a little bit, because I was kind of forced to like talk on the radio and talk to listeners at events and interview people, and that sort of a combination of college and radio kind of broke me out of that. And moving around the country, I think, helped me too. But I sometimes like run into people from high school who haven't seen me since high school, and they're like, wait, what? Like, because I was such a shy kid in high school, and I sort of, evolved out of that, which I credit to radio and the people I've worked with, and the people I've met, and the listeners. And so, yeah, positivity and like being a people person. I think that, it can be hard for people at times to publicly, communicate with somebody. I went to my major in college was communication. And I feel like the reason why I picked that was because I feel like no matter what industry I was getting into, even if I didn't end up working in radio, I would always have to communicate with people. So I felt like public speaking and communicating was a huge thing a skill that I should develop. And I was able to develop that, working in radio and in the 4 years in college. And, just being able to hold a conversation with somebody. So whether, I was just at the Bridgeport Islanders game doing an event for their Sound Tiger Saturday in Bridgeport the other night, minor league hockey game. And we had so many listeners coming up to me saying hi. And I was able to just have a conversation and talk to them and meet them. At one point in my life, I waited tables for like 3 years. And I feel like that was also a similar environment for that skill, talking to people while you're waiting tables, because you're meeting all different people, all different walks of life. They're in, all different ages and demographics. And like, I feel like everybody should wait tables at some point in their life just to get that sort of personal skill down. And yeah, so I think positivity and being like a people person, being able to communicate, those are sort of my two big things. And those are two things I use every day in radio,
Yeah, that's what keeps you going.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a fun industry. Every job that people have, they have their highs and lows. Some things are a challenge at times, no matter what industry you're in. But I feel like I have to step back sometimes. If we get, every job you have a stress. Something you're trying to book an event, we're trying to, oh, we're not selling enough tickets, like whatever it is. You always have to take a step back and be like, at the end of the day, like, we're doing radio, we're making people happy, we're making people smile. The other thing that keeps me going is when people tell me that they heard something on the radio that made them either happy, put them in a good mood, like something I said or a story I talked about. I do a segment called "Tell Me Something Good" every afternoon, around like 3:25 in the afternoon on Star, and it's like it's always a good news story. So even if it's a story where, like, someone got injured or something like that, there's always a good ending to it. And or it's from people here in Connecticut, or someone who told me something recently that I share on the air. It's just positive, good news. Because the news cycle can be so sort of, crazy. So I feel like having a good news story every single afternoon on my show is good for the listeners, and it's also good for me. And I've had people come up to me and be like, that story you talked about with the dog the other day, like, made my day, put me in a good mood. It changed my whole week. And so, like, that type of stuff also keeps me going. Like knowing that I'm broadcasting to a bunch of people, thousands of people, where like whatever I'm saying might change someone's day for the better.
Yeah, definitely helps out.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you haven't done yet that you want to do?
Like in life or in radio or just in general?
One in radio and one in life.
Okay. One thing that I haven't done in life yet that I'd love to do is sit courtside at an NBA game. So that's like a bucket. I'm a huge basketball guy. That's like a bucket list thing for me, is sitting courtside on those seats, like not behind the hoop, like right on the side, like where the celebrities sit, like in that seat. That's probably like a huge bucket list thing for me. So that's one just in life. And then in radio, I'm trying to think. So I've done a lot of different things in radio. I would like to interview. So I've interviewed a lot of artists, like music, bands, and obviously, because we're a music station, I would like to interview some, celebrities, celebrity people, or famous people that aren't in the music industry. Kind of do some interviews like that, just to learn more about them. And yeah, just kind of grow the show a little bit. I've already started. Our company recently just purchased another radio company, so we have more stations. We have about, I think it's like 220 stations now in all different states around the country. So yeah, so I've started working with some of these other stations in these other markets. Like I record a show for the country station out in Portland, Oregon, 98.7 The Bull, and then I also record a weekend show for KJoy on Long Island, which is one of our stations in Long Island, New York. And so I'd like to do more of that too. I think that's fun, being on in other parts of the country, because with technology now we can do it, which is great. And then, kind of working with these other stations, helping them out a little bit to grow their station and to talk to the people. I've already started getting DMs from like people in Portland, Oregon, who are like, I heard you on the Bull, like, and messaging me just hearing the show there. So, kind of helping people out and doing the same thing I'm doing here in Connecticut for other people in other areas of the country is another thing that I'm already starting to do, but I'd like to do a lot more of it.
That's pretty cool. How's that
Yeah.
feel?
It feels great. It feels really cool. It's it's neat. It's surreal in a way, because you think it does humble you a bit, because you're like, there's so many people in this country and walks of life, and I record a 5-hour show out on the opposite coast of the country, and someone's hearing what I'm saying, and they're reacting to it and connecting with it, and it's a positive thing for them. And it's actually crazy that technology is able to let us do this nowadays. I feel like with the AI stuff and internet and social media, it gets a bad rap a lot, but I feel like there's also so many things that it's good for. And so for me to connect with somebody 3,000 miles away on the radio is definitely one of those things.
Yeah. Did you say a 5-hour show?
Yeah, it's 7 to midnight on Sunday nights. So I record some of it. So yeah, it's because of the time difference too. So it's out here on the East Coast, it's pretty late. So I usually try to record it ahead of time. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's a long show.
Yeah, it's like a shift. So it's obviously music, like I play here on Star. But it's so that helps a little bit. I have some friends who work in sports radio up in Boston, and I don't know how they do it, because they have to talk for 25, 30 minutes at a time. They have 3 people on the show, but it's taking calls. It's a lot of work talking that much. So luckily, like on Star here in Connecticut, I play about 14 songs an hour. So I'm talking between the songs, never more than like a couple minutes at a time. So the people who do news radio and sports radio and any sort of talk radio and podcasting too, that's another whole animal. So yeah, I definitely respect them.
Right. And speaking of podcasting, do you have one, or you're working on one?
Yeah. So let's see, how long ago was it now? It was about a year and a half ago. I started a pizza podcast here in Connecticut called Charred. So the quick story behind that is that about 3 years ago, my wife got me a New Haven pizza class for Father's Day. We had just got one of those Uni pizza ovens for the backyard. And so this guy, Frank, in New Haven, he owns New Haven Pizza School. Frank Zabsky is his name. And so she got me this class, how to make New Haven style pizza. And I loved it. It was awesome. So then I just became kind of friends with Frank. And we had always talked about, like, there's, Connecticut is such a huge spot for pizza, obviously in New Haven and throughout the state. And there's not really a pizza show or a pizza podcast or something like that. And obviously I was working here at the radio station, so we had the equipment to do it. And Frank had a lot of connections with a lot of the pizzerias in the state. And I said, why don't we do a podcast, and we can go to we can support local business and support these local pizzerias and record episodes with the owners or the people who make the pizza, whoever it is. And then, we'll obviously, the hub will be New Haven, but we'll branch out to the whole state, to all the different pizzerias. And so we started it up. We said, let's just start it, see what happens. So we do 2 episodes a month. They're about 30 minutes each. And one episode is usually us going out to a pizza place and interviewing somebody here in Connecticut at their pizza spot. And then the other episode is like pizza news, pizza topics, pizza debates. Like, we have a Facebook group all about New Haven style pizza with about, I think there's like 20,000 members now, but we post some content from that, talk about in the episodes too. So we called it Charred New Haven, a New Haven pizza show, and Charred playing on like the New Haven style pizza with the char on the crust. And yeah, so we have it on YouTube. We have it on all the podcast platforms and everything. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been really cool. I mean, pizza, I love pizza. I think everybody sort of does. But ever since I've lived here in Connecticut, I've been really into pizza because of our proximity to New Haven and all the pizza places. So, and in turn, we've created a pizza festival too, the Connecticut Pizza and Brew Fest, which we just had the 3rd year of in Bridgeport at the amphitheater. So that's been really fun too. So yeah, it's been a lot of pizza related content that I've been churning out too.
Right, can't go wrong with pizza.
Yeah, it's true.
And I seen that you recently won an award recently, correct?
Yeah, I was nominated, which I think is winning in itself. I was nominated for best on air personality for radio at the Connecticut Broadcasters Association Awards, which they have every year, celebrating TV and radio here in Connecticut. So it's all the TV stations, all the radio stations. They've added digital media into it now too. So there's some various podcasts. There's journalists. Everyone's there to sort of celebrate, and then they induct people into the Connecticut Broadcasting Hall of Fame. So two guys that we work with here at our stations at Connoisseur, Danny Lyons on Weeby 108, he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and then Juan Castillo on WIBC in New Haven, he got inducted as well. So that was a huge moment for those two guys. And then, I was nominated. I ended up losing the category to Lori from NPR. So shout out to her. She does great work. We're spoiled here in Connecticut. We have so many great radio people and TV people. So she won that. And then Anna and Raven, who do the morning show here, who you've talked to before, they won best morning show, so that was pretty awesome too. So we had a good night at the CBAs. They call them the CBAs, the Connecticut Broadcasting Awards. So it was fun. It was a great night.
Nice, congrats on that. That's a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Definitely. And I just got a couple more.
Yeah, totally.
How do you balance radio life with family and like personal time and creative energy?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because radio is like a 24/7 sort of business. So I program the radio station as well. So I'm scheduling all the music and everything, and and working with all the on-air DJs and booking the events and stuff like that. Working with our promotions department. So it is it's a challenge. Luckily, my wife and I, we both work in radio. She works on the digital advertising side of the business, so she's familiar with radio. So, it's not like she works in a completely different industry and doesn't understand the hours that I have to put in on weekends and holidays and things like that. So she gets it and is also part of this world. So that helps. And then we live like 5 minutes from the radio station. So that helps too. So we have two young kids. We have two girls, and 7 and 4. And so, and the other funny thing is, like, our Star 99.9 specifically, the demographic is like parents and families and things like that. So anytime we have events, luckily we're able to like bring the kids to them. So, we do this big Halloween event that's coming up this weekend, and we were able to just bring our kids, even though we're working technically, because it's a big kids event. So so that helps balance but it is important to have family time away from the job, away from work. So, I try to, we always have dinner together every night. We put the kids to bed. We do fun things on the weekends, things like that. So, and obviously they're in school, so they're doing things during the day while we're at work. But it's keeping that balance. I think it's super important. Your job could go away at any moment's notice, for any variety of reasons. It's not necessarily like you're getting laid off or fired. It could be something changed in your life or whatever it is in your work life, but your family is always going to be there. And that's kind of what you mentioned, Jen, earlier. That's kind of what I explained to her, because she was kind of struggling with she was with the commute, and I said your family comes first. Like, do what you need to do for your family, and then maybe down the road you could come back and work in this job again. But the family is always the number one. Obviously you want to balance the two, but I just feel like personally that family comes first. So however you can spend more time with your family, the better. And I tell that to people here too. If they have a family thing that comes up, and and we can find a way to cover them because they have to go to this family event or whatever it is, they should do that first. So I think it's important to balance the two, definitely.
Right. And what do you see like for radio in the near future? Do you see it changing in any ways, or you keep seeing it evolving?
I think it's always changing. I kind of joked the other day to Anna that who does the morning show here. I feel like we haven't had a string of like 2 years in a row where everything has stayed the same. You know what I mean? Like, I think things keep evolving every year. Things keep changing. Our company just bought all these new radio stations throughout the country. And our CEO, Jeff Warshaw, is really about local radio. So I actually think the localism is going to come back to radio in a big way in the next, call it 3 to 5 years, like as we go here. I think local is going to be huge for these stations. So you have the huge radio companies who I have a lot of friends who work at the iHearts and Odyssey and, you know, a lot of these big companies, and they're great. You know, they do great work, but unfortunately they're huge companies. So, you know, they have a bottom line and they have to do their thing too. So I actually think some of these radio stations are going to go back. It used to be that like local owners, local people in these towns and communities owned radio stations and they broadcast it to the local community. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to come back a lot more. Our CEO, Jeff, he's all about localism. He lives here in Connecticut. He comes to our events. He loves radio. He's such a supporter of radio, of local radio too. And, you know, that's at the end of the day, we play music, but people can get music anywhere nowadays. They can't get the personalities that are, you know, that they hear on their drive home and then are also at the Halloween event this Saturday and they're able to take a picture with them and put it on their Instagram, you know? And you know, they can't get that from all these other places that they get their music. So that's kind of what sets us apart. We have the local personalities in between their favorite songs and that connect with them. And we put on these fun events for them. Sometimes we bring artists to town that they get to meet. We do the Star Acoustic Sessions in Fairfield, a little pub where an artist will play for like 40 winners. So we do that type of stuff. So like it's connecting with the local community. And I think I actually think the younger generation is getting into radio now because they didn't grow up with it. And they think it's like cool and new. I've noticed it. I notice it more and more every single time that I do an event and I meet people who listen to the station and to the show for our station specifically. Because it's like middle school age kids or younger who are like, oh, we listen all the time. Like it's on the school bus or we, you know, that's Kevin from Star. Like, and they're fascinated by it because they grew up with the opposite. They grew up with the streaming and being able to get songs the second they tell something to play it. And so I think the spontaneous nature of radio is attracting these young kids, this younger generation a little bit because it's something different. So I think that's really cool. And like the live nature of it, like the fact that they can listen in the car and like they hear me talking. And then we've had families come in to do a tour of the radio station. And I'm like, yeah, here's where I'm doing the show from. So they kind of make that connection. They're like, this is so cool. It's like in the same town I live in. So yeah, I think that's going to help radio because that younger generation is eventually going to become adults and keep listening to the radio station, or at least keeping up with the brand. You know, radio, when I first got into it, there wasn't a video element of radio. Obviously now there is with YouTube and social media, podcasting. You know, I think that stuff, it's all about content and branding. You know, that stuff will always be evolving, the technology part of radio. You know, we still have the on-air signal, obviously, and then we stream on smart speakers and the website, and, you know, we stream in all different places. So people listen all over the place because they can get us anywhere. But yeah, I think localism, you know, connecting with your community is going to be what keeps radio. And that's what's kept radio going. Like I said at the beginning, when we first started talking, like 20 years I've been in radio, every year people say radio is going away and it hasn't yet. So I think as long as there's still people, you know, who are passionate about radio, working in radio, like at our company and like some of the other places in the country, I think it's going to still keep going and keep going strong.
Yeah, it's needed.
Yeah, and the artists too. You know, we just saw the Taylor Swift huge album release, and she made a point to do interviews with radio hosts across the world. So over in the UK, she did a bunch of the big ones here in the US, and because now Taylor Swift, that's the biggest artist currently, you know, arguably on the planet right now, and she still understands that radio is a huge part of her, you know, campaign and success of her album coming out, because. You know, people talk about Spotify and Apple Music and all the streaming platforms now, and I always say that they're a complement to a radio station, to radio, because they're not really like what we're competing against, because those things kind of replace the record store and like the record and people's record collection, you know, or their CD collection. Like that's what that replaced. Like people still had CD collections and they still went to Sam Goody or FYE and still listened to the radio, you know, because radio kind of takes a single, so like a big hit single, and makes it kind of like the huge song that the artist has, you know, because someone can buy the album or stream the album and they listen to all of it, but you get that one shared kind of listening experience of the one hit single that people driving in their car are all listening to at the same time. And that kind of propels that song. And we're seeing it now too. Like an artist will release a song like 3 years ago, and then it'll become popular again now because maybe people are using it in TikTok videos, but then radio starts playing it again, and then it becomes like a new single, even though it came out 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's where like radio has helped a little bit too. And yeah, so I think the artists still understand that radio is important, and I think as long as that's still happening too, I think radio will be fine.
Right. And once again, I really appreciate you for doing this. I got
Oh
one
yeah,
more question.
thank you for having me. Yeah.
Definitely. What advice can you give to somebody who wants to become like a radio director or like a radio host or become something like yourself?
Yeah, if anyone's watching or listening and they want to get into radio, I would say if that's your passion, that's what you want to do. Like, never stop practicing. If you want to be on the air, never stop practicing it. So like, even like you're doing right now, like host a podcast. Just do, the equipment's there. Like everyone has a phone pretty much now. So like you can practice doing radio shows into your phone. You can practice doing radio shows just in your bedroom if you want. So definitely just do that. Try to grow your personal brand, and then maybe at some point, a radio station will reach out, or you'll find an opportunity where there is a platform for you to be on the radio because you've built a brand already, whether it be in podcasting, social media, anything like that. And just be passionate. Like, we've had people here that start on the street team part-time. They're getting paid hourly. They're setting up the tent at events and concerts. And then eventually they get on the air, and then all of a sudden they're a superstar. Like Anna started out as like a weekend DJ on one of our rock stations like 15 years ago. She was doing stand-up comedy and just like a weekend DJ, and now she's on one of the biggest morning shows in Connecticut, syndicated in 70 different stations around the country. Like, she's a superstar now, all because she just kept at it, kept working at it. So yeah, if radio is your passion, if it's what you want to do, I would say if you're if you're in college right now, and like, internships are obviously a huge thing. We have a lot of interns here at our stations. And I would say intern at all different types of places, because you might discover you have a passion for something else while doing an internship. But if you really want to do radio, we have internships, and that's another way you can learn the inside of the business. It's a great way to do it and see if that's something you want to do. But yeah, I would say if you want to be a host, if you want to be on air, there's so many different ways to do it now, to just practice and hone your craft, and then always be willing to do stuff and help people out. If a station reaches out and they say, hey, we need someone to do this, but we don't quite have an on-air position yet, but we do have a part-time position as a street teamer, or we have an internship, or we have a sales position, whatever it is, and that's really what you want to do, go for it, And I would, never give up that thing that you're passionate about. Like, never let someone say like, oh no, there's no jobs open right now. Like, there's always a way you can practice it and keep it going.
That's very good advice. Well,
yeah,
Kevin, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. And I've been following you on social since you reached out, and it seems like you're doing an awesome job too. So yeah, I from all of the clips I've watched, I'm a fan. So yeah, great job doing what you're doing too.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And maybe we could do a part 2 soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm anytime, I'm obviously on the air in the afternoon here on Star, 2 to 7. People might hear me there, but yeah, anytime you want, like, reach out and maybe we can do a part 2 in the future.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Rome. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
All right, Kevin. Peace.
See you later.